How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Stupid Questions podcast. Changing up the intro a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and say in the beginning, if you are here, thank you for being here. If you have not subscribed already to whatever platform you're listening on, please do that. Like, comment, subscribe. You know all the things. Check out the show notes. There's lots of cool stuff in there, and the newsletter that I am working on sending out each week that gives like a recap of things I've learned from the week and then something fun at the bottom. Check that out. Today on the episode, we're going to be talking with Chris McCormack. He is, I would like to say, a man after my own heart, but really, since I'm younger than him, I'm a man after his own heart in terms of entrepreneurship, a love for sport. Obviously, I'm not as talented on the athletic side, but in terms of the entrepreneurial drive, business acumen, just high-speed way of going forward and chasing ideas and trying to make things happen, really do in a lot of ways look up to him. So this is a really fun conversation. We dive into a lot of things, obviously, from business to religion to him moving around the world, the different things that he's done, his family, life growing up, a lot of cool things. Really great conversation. So just want to say thank you so much, Chris, for coming on. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Chris McCormack. Where do you find yourself right now? Are you at home?
I'm in Sydney. I'm in the office.
Nice.
Yeah, all the girls are at the front. I sit at the back here.
Yeah, nice. I was going to say, is that a background or is that actually the room?
No, it's just a lounge I have in here. Yeah, we used to be out there, but they stuck it in my office because I got new lounges. So
right on, man. That's awesome. Well, first thing I should say is thank you so much for making the time. I know I've been a persistent buzzing bee inside of your inboxes to try to make it happen. So thanks for setting up the time and allowing it to happen.
Yeah, easy. No dramas. No dramas. I don't know if I've got anything good to say, but we'll give it a crack.
Oh, I'm sure you will. No, I'm looking forward to it, man. Well, I guess should say good morning to you. It's 8 a.m. there, correct? On Wednesday morning?
10 a.m. now.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How's your morning been?
Yeah, good. Just school runs and typical morning in Sydney in winter. Getting my kid to go. Well, only my son left, so but got that done. Straight to the office and trying to plan a run in to get a run in. We're running the Sydney Marathon this weekend, so.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So you're tapering down for that?
I should be cramming. I haven't done anywhere near enough. We signed up for it. It seemed a good idea when you signed up 8 months ago, but then suddenly it's 8 days away and you're like, oh, far out. So
yeah, no kidding. Well, what's it like for you? Because like obviously you've done, the professional athlete round and the whole world of that. Now going to just more of your later years, obviously you have more priorities. What's it like when you go out and perform these days? Are you find it you're more tough on yourself, or is it still just as enjoyable?
Way softer on myself. I just don't want to hurt anymore.
Yeah.
So I can actually enjoy I've done a lot of the marathons now. I just sort of made a pact that I wouldn't mind collecting them all. I'd done New York and that when I was a triathlete racing with Under Armour, but and then I just thought, I might as well collect them. So I've done Tokyo. I'm doing Chicago again this year. I did Sydney, London. So I just thought I'd collect them all. But the last few I've been running with friends. It's actually been really pleasant to no expectation and just go out there and enjoy a marathon. If you can enjoy a marathon, but without any. But we're only running, like a lot of the guys I'm running with want to break 3 hours and 20 minutes. So it's not killer pace. It's not fast, but it's not slow.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Do you think that you'd ever want to do like the marathon on every continent? I guess Antarctica would be a bit tough, but.
No interest. I actually question every time I run one of these. I'm like, I was a hip problem the last couple of days. I'm like, what am I doing to myself? I'm too old. I've been enjoying my bike riding, but even living here in Sydney, just the roads are getting more busy. So more getting off-road on gravel and mountain bikes, which I've enjoyed. But again, just cruising. I've lost my, if it was 15, 20 years ago, I was jumping off cliffs and, now breaking bone is a successful day.
Yeah. But how many years young are you?
I'm 52 now. Yeah. So 73 boy, getting old. I can't believe it's 52. It goes quick.
Yeah, it does go quick. I'll be turning 33 in less than a month. And I remember distinctly having thoughts when I was in like 16, 17, with your brothers and sisters or whatever. And you're like, oh, and this year we'll be 30. Oh, that's so old. What will I be like at 30? And like, here I am. I thought I'd either be dead or something else would have happened by now, but here we are.
Oh, mate, it only gets harder because then you start reflecting on your memories of your parents being this age and you're thinking, no, it's like, I'm like 50. I remember my mother and father's 50th. I'm like, oh, and they were old people. Now I'm past that. So it makes you take inventory and check yourself every now and then that you are not as young as you think you are.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah.
How old are your parents? And they are still with us, you're saying?
No,
Yeah.
no, all gone. Yeah,
No, they're.
my mum passed at 51, so I'm older than what
Mm.
she was when she died. I remember when she passed away thinking she had
Oh,
a
wow.
pretty good run, but now I'm past that age. I'm thinking, wow, way too young to die. So she
Yeah.
died just around the Sydney Olympics, so quite some time ago. And my dad
Mm.
passed in 2022, 2021, sorry, during
Oh,
COVID.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, no.
That
So now,
sounds like,
yeah, now I don't need to answer to anyone. No, I'm
yeah,
joking.
yeah. Yeah, I know.
I can only disappoint myself, if that
Yeah.
makes
No, 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 no. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But dude, that's tough stuff to go through. I mean, I'm trying to think of other people I know who are in their 50s. Typically, it's right around that age when you start moving into the phase of now we're taking care of mom and dad and,
Yeah, yeah.
figuring out living situations. So it's definitely a different season of life. But you had it taken from you a bit earlier. Do you, this is kind of a hard question, but do you think that you would, if you could bring them back and even go through that tough season, do you think would warrant them being alive a little longer? Like, do you think that would be good?
Oh, without question. I don't think when you, I don't think anyone, I know your parents are going to pass. For me, when my mum passed, it was a massive shock. I was still young. I was 22, 23.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's huge.
yeah, and she was, I remember I was in the middle of my racing career. I flew home for it, just right on the eve of the Sydney Olympics.
Yeah.
And she, I remember her passing, and it just happened so fast. You just sort of like, oh wow, bang, you deal with it. Takes you a while, but now you're older and you have your own kids. I think reflectively, I just didn't get to know my mother I only knew her as a mum, and I think I got
Yeah.
more years with my dad. I had 25 years extra before he passed, but 20 years extra. I got to
Hmm.
know him as a friend, like as a dad. He's still your dad,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
when you become an adult, I only really knew my mum as, I was so young when she passed.
yeah. Mm.
And I hear stories from her friends or my aunties of what she was like as a person. I'm like, oh, bummer. I wish I knew that. So
Yeah.
I'd love to have them back.
Yeah.
Dad was around for a lot of stuff because I have two brothers. So, when mum passed, he picked up the mantle and was
Yeah.
around for a lot of it. So I was very blessed in that sense. But I
Yeah.
think you always want your parents back. You don't really
Yeah, for
realize
sure.
until it's too late, and you think, oh damn, I wish I asked more questions.
Hmm.
You just
Yeah,
don't know.
I can totally relate. I lost my dad when I was 16, and now that I've gotten a little bit older and kind of went through this phase of life, which I'm always fascinated to hear when people go through it and how they go through it. But seeing your parents less as your parents and more as like a human or a
Yeah.
friend, it's quite the shift. And I don't know what sets it off per se, but that transition is like, I don't know, it's like a full circle moment. And we start to realize, oh, well, they were just kids too, they're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
figure it
yeah.
out.
I think you start to get some depth to perspective yourself. Time gives you that depth of perspective, and you start
Mm.
thinking, you start putting yourself in their shoes. You're like, oh wow,
Yeah.
maybe I wonder if they're as lost as I am at the moment. Those sort of questions.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, it gives you some perspectives. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah.
So where are you from? I mean, obviously Australia, but were you always from the Sydney side, or are you from
Yeah,
somewhere else?
I grew up in Sydney. I grew up in the eastern suburbs of Sydney until I was about 10. Then we moved to the south of
Okay.
Sydney, which is what I got into running and sport for. The inner city of Sydney is the eastern suburbs, beautiful beaches, Bondi Beach and everything, but it's still the city. And then we moved to the furthest beach on the south of Sydney back in the early 80s. And that was considered, like in the early 80s, it was considered the outskirts of Sydney. Now people are like, oh, really?
Yeah.
It's Sydney now,
Yeah.
but very lucky because it borders the biggest national park in New
Mm.
South Wales. So you've got mountain bike trails, awesome beaches, great. So we grew up surfing and swimming and mountain biking and motorbike riding, and so all those sort of things correlated to me ultimately falling into triathlon just by chance, because sort of triathlon in Australia was spawned in this part of Sydney because we had
Hmm.
the roads and stuff to do the races on. So
Yeah.
grew up here and still have a place here. Met my wife around here, so she's a
That's
local
amazing.
girl. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good part of Australia to live, without
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
kidding. And you said you had two brothers, is that correct?
yeah. I have an older brother and a younger brother. Yeah, I'm in the
Oh,
middle.
okay, nice. What do
Yeah.
they do? What did they end up going for in life?
My brother's a builder, so he
Right on.
lives in Brisbane, where the next Olympics will be.
Cool.
Semi-retired now. He was quite successful as a developer, and my younger brother's a computer engineer, who's now stressing about AI, that his whole life is being turned upside down.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh wow, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, he's still computer engineering, computer whatever they do,
Yeah.
computering. I
Yeah.
always ring to do computer stuff for me. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
No, it's crazy, man. The how that world is changing every facet of like how we exist. Because, like, for example, so obviously I do the podcast and I use AI quite a bit to
yeah.
transcripts, descriptions, like very simple stuff. But I've been lately. I just downloaded every transcript from every episode and compressed it all, threw it through an AI system. Is like, you know what? Help me to pick out some through lines just to see if there's things that I pick up or that it would pick up that I haven't, and trying to put it together for some kind of a book. Um, but yeah, it's super interesting, like how it's changing and how
Yeah.
it's like working with a human that's just way smarter, faster. It's like really strange. Like there's some things that are in there that's a little different, but has it changed your life and the way that you've operated in the past year?
Oh, I use AI for everything now. Like I even sold my Google stock because I just see the way I use AI as
Yeah.
opposed in just for my search capacity. And
Yeah.
everyone says, "Oh, old people use AI for a search," but I was, you
That's
know,
where everyone's going.
I was quite long on Google on Alphabet, and I ended up selling all my stock because I sit there going, "Well, so much of their revenue is driven from." I know they got YouTube and
Ad
everything.
revenue. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking, mate, I don't even use them anymore. I used to use Google for everything. Now it's just
Yeah.
so. Yeah, I actually use it a lot, and we got a sports agency here, so I know my whole marketing team are all over it and doing a lot of the stuff with content, with a lot of the design work now. It's just, I think
Yeah.
it's become a real, okay, we're not at the point where it's replacing people, but I'm seeing some roles within my organization,
Mm-hmm.
100% heavily risked roles that you
Yeah.
just need in the future. But,
Mm.
but it's definitely increased their output without
Yeah.
question. Yeah. And
Yeah.
just, yeah, it just allowed us to be more, I think, thorough in a lot of the stuff we do, where you
Mm.
probably wouldn't have done that research as heavily before. Whether it's right or wrong when you do the
Yeah.
search, it's still good to know.
Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. It's always interesting to see the changing of the guard. So I grew up obviously through the same period you did, but I'm just a little younger, but through the internet, and how that changed everything. And then like you're talking about Google, and I really see like a big shift, a changing in the guard. And I'm a little concerned at the same time because I feel like I'm getting old and kind of having some of these, I don't know, more negative thoughts and not looking to all of the positive of the innovations. But if you throw some of these systems like that, you can talk with like the premium version of ChatGPT inside of a humanoid robot, like pretty soon it's like you're going to lose the distinction between
Oh, totally.
what's real, what's fake, and then people start marrying these things because they get
Yeah.
this better gratification. And it's like, man, where in the world? What are we building?
I tend to agree. I don't know where it goes, but I'm also probably a little bit older in the sense that I remember when the internet came,
Yeah,
and I vividly remember the .com bubble of 2001. I was living in the States and I was investing in a lot of these .com things then, made a lot of runs on it before the collapse happened. But I remember the discussions just on your Today Show and stuff in America, people talking about the internet
yeah,
and people talking about how people are going to buy stuff online. And you watch the old videos and they're laughing that loud and they're like, that'll never happen.
yeah.
And now it's just common. So I'm very,
Ubiquitous. Yeah,
yeah, I'm very, very keen to see where this AI goes, but I do tend to agree. I think, you're seeing those movies now with maybe start marrying robots and stuff. I don't know, maybe they're preempting what it's
oh
going to
yeah,
look like in the future. But yeah, I think the sky's the limit. I wouldn't question anything because I couldn't have imagined
we'd be here.
been now, 30 years ago. No
Did you
chance.
ever did you ever see the film I, Robot with Will Smith?
Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
literally what I think about all the time. Is like we're coming up on 2030, and
yeah.
honestly, some things are different, but some things are scary getting close. Like I think about when he talked to that AI that was like in the building of where he was going or whatever, and it's like that's literally where we are. What's going on?
It's nuts, man.
Yeah, it's
It's
crazy.
absolutely
Yeah.
nuts. No.
So, I could harp on that stuff all day long, but I want to get back to you. So, Chris, you have done a lot of things, and I'm going to ask questions specifically about some of those things that you've
Sure.
done in just your personal life, obviously in your professional career, after the sport as well. But from your perspective, to get us kicked off, really, I want to know from just your view, who is Chris?
Who am I? Oh, jeez. I'm just a young Australian kid, working class kid from the suburbs of Sydney that, um, yeah, yeah, just was infatuated with competition. I think being a middle child, I was always that painfully competitive kid. Wanted to be a professional surfer my whole life. Grew up on the
Mm,
beach here. Was an accidental triathlete in the sense that I fell into the sport to get fit for surfing at my father's recommendation. I think I was chronically ADD as a kid. I still have ADD tendencies, but
sure.
back then you weren't diagnosed with those sort of things. So just the common, I guess, treatment for that as my parents did, was throw you in every single sport you possibly can do to make you tired, and then hopefully you sleep at night. And that's what I did. I swam as a kid my whole life. I ran every afternoon. I was in soccer teams, rugby teams, surfed. I don't remember not doing sport of any capacity, and multiple sports. And I think, I think that's just me. I just I enjoy my life in this part of the world. I've always loved travel. I always was keen to get out of where I grew up. I think predominantly because I just wanted to see a better life. Not that the life I had was shitty or anything by any means, but I mean, I just was very curious. I'm a naturally curious individual. So travel was always a big part of my, of my ethos of what I wanted to do with my life. And I saw sport as a major opportunity to do that. Never in a million years imagined I'd be a world champion triathlete. My brothers still laugh about that because we were just rat bags as kids, trying to be pro surfers and motorbike riders. And when I got voted by ESPN the world's fittest man, my older brother just couldn't stop laughing. He's like, mate, they got no idea.
Really? I love your brothers always bring around the
like, hey, you're a joke. You're a silk, I'm like, oh, okay, thanks. But yeah, that's probably who I am. But yeah, I've never really looked inward. I've just always wanted to be without question, I always wanted to be, I was a good kid. Like I always wanted to make my parents proud. If you had any, I guess, direction, it was always to not disappoint them in any way. And even though I lost my mum very young, she was a pivotal part of my life. And my dad was old school father without question. Just get your shit done. Don't be a victim, that type of father. Life is not fair. Don't expect it to be fair, and you're going to be good, but get out there and as he used to always say, great things happen to people who make great things happen to themselves. They won't just knock on your door. So that was always my, I guess my guiding light in life was just go out and make shit happen for yourself and don't expect anything to come about. And I've lived by that mantra, and and that's who I still am. I think to my core, that's what I try and teach my kids is just don't be a victim and just go out and get it done. And life's not fair. And I think when you accept life's not fair, then you don't expect anything to always fall your way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's some values there, like hard work and curiosity, work ethic, I think it sounds like definitely a deep part of it. But let me ask you this question. If your dad were still around and, I guess this is even a relevant question when he was alive, but do you feel like he was proud of you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I don't he wasn't very well educated. So he was very, 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 very driven to have his boys educated, which we all did. We all completed college. I think that was his whole life's ambition. So when I actually finished college, or when I was at college, I got offered a pro contract to move to Europe, which my father said, you're not doing. When I finished college, I moved to Europe to chase this professional career as an athlete. And he was absolutely livid, man. Like, I mean,
oh, wow.
couldn't believe it. Like, we're going to do what? Like, and I try and tell people to be like, your kid coming to you now saying, I want to go and pursue a career as a Spartan athlete. Like triathlon was like it existed, but here in Australia, it was like, well, that's what people do on the weekends. You don't really have a professional career in this shit.
Yeah.
He was a bit disappointed. And then when I won, luckily a couple of years later when I moved home, the World Championships pre-Sydney Olympics were on in Sydney. We're on in Perth, Australia. It was massive live TV here. And it was the first big event that my dad had watched me compete in internationally since I'd become a pro and moved overseas. And I ended up winning that world title. And that was when he actually said to me,
he realized,
this is what I do, Dad. And he's like, wow, okay. Yeah, I'm proud of you, mate. Like, this is pretty cool. And then he came to everything after that. I think it was a matter of him accepting that pro sport is something you can do, whilst it's probably not what your parents have, envisaged for you, because I guess they're more conservative and probably aware of failure a lot more than you are when you're young and aspiring. You think you can do everything. Yeah. I think, by the end of it, he was very happy. He called me the golden child at the end. He never worked out. He was the blessed one. He never had to work too hard in his life. I'm like, thanks, Dad. I only train my okay, but it's just newer things was quite, which I think I needed. It was very grounding for me. I think I needed that grounding, keeping you level type individual in my life that didn't let me get ahead of myself.
Friction keeps the foundation secure. With your mom though, was it easier for her to adopt like oh yeah, I'm down with that, or was it about the same time that it clicked for her where she was like, oh,
Oh, she was
this
always
is it?
supportive of everything. I think that's what we missed.
Okay.
That dynamic with our mother and father. Like dad was always, I guess, not the voice of reason, but he'd always tell you, I guess, all the obstacles you were going to face. Not
Yeah.
and to some degree, I always say you're negative Nelly to some degree. I was like, you don't kill off the dream, but I think dad was more that. My mum was like, dream big and go for it. Like,
Yeah.
why can't you do that?
Mm.
I like that balance. And I think had mum passed when I was a little younger, my life might have been different. But I was
Yeah.
able to get her in those later years, and she was like, "Get over there, go and travel, go and have a go at it."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
like those sort of conversations,
Yeah.
which were good, which I
Well,
need.
that's yeah. Yeah. No
Yeah,
kidding. When did you start the triathlon career then? Because you said your mom and dad passed when you were 22, so you
yeah,
were
yeah. I started triathlon. I did my first race in 92, 93, 92, 1992 when I was at university.
yeah.
So in 1990. No, 91, in November of 91, 92, the Australian summer, because we got summer down here. My mum passed in 99.
Okay.
So,
So you were like
mm,
20 years old.
yeah, she was, I was 25, 24. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So who do you think that you're more like, your mom or your dad?
Definitely like my father more than I'd like to admit. I see it
Yeah.
with my kids, but I think of, and as I said earlier on this podcast, I wish I knew my mum more now,
Yeah.
like, because the last few years I was living in Europe, very different times. There's no emails and stuff. And I tell my kids, like, I mean, we didn't have cell phones. Like, I lived in Europe. I think I rang home 6 times. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
you sent a
Totally
few
different.
postcards and, it was a very different time. I wish I'd done more. It was just a sign of the times, right? You just didn't do more because it wasn't available. But
Yeah.
I wish had run home a lot more, because I do remember the excitement of mum being on the phone. And, you reverse the charges call.
Yeah.
But it was, yeah, I think I'm more like my dad, but I probably have the softness of my mother, which is probably a nice balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How has the upbringing that you experienced influenced the way now that you're a parent? Like, have you taken on things that you learned and tried to remove things that you learned as well that you didn't like?
Yeah, I think it's I think you don't reflect. You just suddenly. Well, I know in my perspective, I suddenly just a parent. Like, I mean, I'm like, wow. Like, you're juggling trying to work out your own life, and then suddenly you got another life in your hands, and you're like, well,
Yeah.
okay, we got this. Like, there's no instruction book, and then halfway around that journey, you start hearing yourself sound more and more like your parents as you start saying those things, and you're like, what have I taken on? I do think the things that I used to not push back against, but the things that I'd go to my room as a kid, I'm not going to do that when I'm an adult. When I'm a parent, I'm not going to do it. I actually think I, am- I use those things a lot more. Like, I'm very much like my father in not accepting the victim mentality of my kids. It's
Yeah.
like, come on, guys, like, and realizing where you come from and realizing you have opportunities other people don't have, being present and staying aware of your luckiness to some degree, and
Mm.
that it can be taken away from you at any moment. And I think my father was always pushy in that sense, that he wanted more from our lives than he got from his, I guess. So that selflessness, I wish I adopt very much with my kids now. But sometimes you question it. Like,
Yeah.
me. My son last night, for example, crashed his electric bike and rang me, and he's like, "Dad, I crashed my bike," and I'm like, "Okay, like, what do you want me to do?" Like, he's like, "Oh, what am I supposed to do?" I'm like, "Solve the problem, man." Like, I mean, you're
How old is
14.
he?
Yeah, 14. I'm
You're
like,
14.
solve the problem. Like, I'm not with you. You need to, and sometimes I question, like, back in the day, I would have been, I'm not ringing my dad because I'm going to get in trouble, to how do I get back home? To, you to solve the issue. So I'm still trying to teach him, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
He got
And
home safe.
yeah. 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 And you are married, correct?
I am married. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
how did your wife respond? Did she know that what happened?
No, she's in Europe. So I'm actually daddy daycare at the moment. So my oldest daughter, I have 3 kids. My oldest is 22. She's in Europe with her boyfriend at the moment. And my wife flew up 3 days ago to meet them at the end of their holiday. And
Okay.
then I fly up in 2 weeks because my daughter works for me. So we got a big gala we're running in Zurich,
Okay.
with like Usain Bolt and all these athletes are coming.
Yeah.
Anthony Joshua, if you like your boxing, I love boxing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and And so Talia is heavily involved. My daughter's heavily involved in running that gala with the girls here. And so they're staying around until that, and I meet them there. So I'm home alone. So she's not aware of all the crashes and the
Yeah.
everything. They're ringing every day saying, how's
Yeah.
everything? I'm just saying, yeah, it's cruising along, doing it easy.
Yeah. Well, from what I can tell, the house isn't on fire, so I think you're doing pretty good. So let me ask you this question: when you look back on yourself, like obviously there's different things that we learn as we get older and then have kids, like all these seasons of life, they teach a lot of lessons. For you, what is a truth that you have kind of internally known about yourself for a while, but only recently have admitted?
Oh, geez, they're heavy questions, man. They're not stupid. They're heavy questions.
Maybe I'll change the podcast name for you.
What truths do I know about myself? I think the one thing I haven't really looked inward enough, though. I've been told I should do it more, probably by my wife, but I think one thing triathlon taught me, and I miss it. I guess that's a better way of looking at it.
Okay.
I miss the true honesty that you have with yourself. The one thing, I guess, when you live as an athlete your whole life, there's two things I've learned since migrating out of sport. Number one, you're around high performing people, and a lot of people like to throw that buzzword around, or high performance, but mate, like when you're around elite athletes, they're high performers in every capacity. Like, I mean, the sacrifices there, the commitment, the discipline, the belief, the drive, everything's there. And when you're only around those people in camps and that, and you have been for 20 years of your life, you can be blinded by the fact that you think the world actually thinks like that, right? Like, what are the people? And then you get out in the real world, which is supposed to be the world that's, the real world. We've been living in this bullshit world, and you realize that there's a lot more fakeness, a lot more, sport you can't bluff. You can talk a big game, but you get exposed on race day, or you get exposed on game day. And you get publicly exposed. But in life, I felt that everyone could, you wear these filters and these crap, and people sort of bullshit their way around, and it's accepted. That was the one thing I found. The people that you sit in a meeting, you're like, this guy's such a flog, but no one actually says it. Where in sport, it would be said, or you would be exposed. So I miss from sport. I miss, and especially in endurance sport, when you're suffering, and I miss that brutal honesty. I miss the people I'm around, the drive for excellence amongst your peers, the absolute pursuit of the same goal, and the selfishness of what that entails to achieve that. So I guess I realized, looking inwards, that I'm a relatively selfish individual when I want to be, when I want to lock in on something, which I don't think is a negative trait. I think it's a good trait that can be applied in other areas. It's as much about discipline as everything. But I think the honesty I used to have when you run out and you have those conversations with yourself, which any endurance athletes had, where the question marks of whether you're good enough to do what you're asking yourself of, and the brutal honesty you have, where you can't lie to yourself. Where I guess what I'm saying about the real world, in the real world, people don't have those honest conversations with themselves. They actually believe they're bullshit, and they actually create this, and a lot of the times it's very successful and works, this almost fake illusion of reality, where in sport I never felt I had that. And I have such immense respect for my peers. Like, I mightn't necessarily like them. Like, in my days, I raced, say, Craig Alexander or Norman Stadler, these guys, and mate, as people, we're completely different individuals. But I have an immense respect for them, right? I've suffered with them on the race course, so I know what they're definitely capable of. So I guess what I've learned, I miss that wanting something so much, true, honest conversations with yourself that you can't lie about, and being around a group of peers and individuals that have that same expectation of themselves and that same high performance drive, but not in a filtered way, in a real way. Absolute, the realness of that, and the fact that you suffer the indignity of loss very publicly, because we all know when we go to a world championship or a race, we all want that title. We've all sacrificed the same. We've all gone without, and only one can do it. There's the rest of you are disappointed, and you go home to your families, and we've all been that person, and you have to reassess, take inventory, assess how to get better, and go back and be courageous enough to go back after it again. That's when you're in sport, you just take that for granted. And as I guess I'm saying, in the real world, a lot of people quit before a second chance, which is surprising to me.
Yeah. Great answer. So, in an effort to peel back the filter or the layers a little bit, what is taking up the most mental bandwidth for you right now upstairs that if you were to race, would be exposed?
Most mental bandwidth. I think I have a tendency to take on a lot more than I anticipate. I see opportunity in everything. So now I'm in the business world, I guess. It was the same in the sports when I was training. I was always looking for the edge. What could,
Hmm.
maybe I need to go to this swim coach. Maybe I need to work on this thing. Maybe I need paddles. Maybe I need to try this. Maybe I need this suit. You're always looking. Now I'm not
Something.
doing that anymore. And I guess the difference between being an athlete and a businessman in some degree is my life didn't change from a performance point of view or from an expectation point of view, um, regardless of how many sponsors I had. I just stuck another sticker on my jersey, but I did the same shit, right? Like, and I say this to all the pros now that I'm like, when you get in the real world, man, there's only so much bandwidth you have, because when you sign up to do another company's work or get involved, they expect time from you. It's not just a logo on a t-shirt, right? Like,
Hmm.
you know, you have 20
Hours,
logos or 10
results.
logos, you do the same shit. But now in the real world, so I think what would be exposed now is my tendency to take on a lot. I think my staff here realize that it's like I see the opportunity in things. I'm like, let's do it. I like to peel it back, strip it down, and then, but I require other people in my life now to assist me in making those things happen. So I think my bandwidth would be a lack of time. Like my staff here tell me I have way too much. We do way too many Phoenix, Bahrain, the Tour de France team. We do um, gala dinners. We run all the Australian sport here. We're doing all we have a big company, and I just keep dropping more on their plate going, no, here's a good idea. Let's do this. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, that I've been very opportunistic, and it's probably the same mindset that drove me into becoming a professional athlete. Seems like a good idea. Let's do it. I see the upside more than the obstacles.
Yeah. Well, you just named off like like obviously to I think most people would say like a really impressive list in terms of things created, done, people met, things executed upon. But for you, what do you think is the most important thing to this day that you've done in your life?
Oh, geez. Um, from a life point of view, I think meeting my wife and selecting her, I think she was the most, yeah, from I guess, life point of view,
Yeah.
a very, very wise selection of life partner, because I've seen that be a problem for a lot of people.
Mm. Yeah. No
I
kidding.
think, and from a sporting point of view, I think winning that World Triathlon Championships world title, for myself personally, a lot of people talk about the Ironman world titles, but I think for me personally was very important, because I was world number one and I was doing all this stuff short course, and it was more for me to justify to my father that I'd made this correct decision. And I guess winning a world title is the only way you could do that. So he was there to watch that race. So that was very important for me. And in business, I think building my company, when I retired, I built a big school and sports center in Thailand, which is Tanyapura, which moved me to Thailand, and we spent $250 million on amazing development. And I'd never
Wow.
really was able to apply any of the stuff. I was an accountant at university and had done quite well out of the sport, and built my sort of consulting company out of Singapore. And this was the first big out of sport project we did, which changed Phuket, the island of Phuket in Thailand. We built the biggest international school on the island, the biggest sports center on the island. It was an
Wow.
incredible development. And from there, we were able to build this business. And so I think, as people are like, how did you do that? As I said to you before, I just saw opportunity in everything. Like I was in
Yeah.
the Middle East, and I'm the type of guy that I was in Kazakhstan. Like a lot of people tell me, like people, what are you doing in Kazakhstan? I said, mate, I'm there. I would fly everywhere to see opportunity, and that
Yeah.
was fundamentally, I was in the Middle East, and now Saudi Arabia is buying everything in sports. So my sports company built. So I think building the Mana Group is probably the most proud thing I've done, because I always felt like I had imposter syndrome, especially when you leave sport. You coming into the world I was 40 or 39, 40 years of age as I was retiring, and now trying to build businesses, and all I could do was swim, bike, and run according to everyone else
Yeah.
around me. And in order to pivot, and I saw a lot of my peers struggle with that. I'm proud of the fact that I just applied the same mindset as I did in sport, that failure is probably going to happen 90% of the time, and don't be scared of it. and don't not do something because you're worried about failing, which that's what I said to you earlier. Find in the real world, everyone's a phony. Like, I mean, and I found that with my peers. I used to, because now it's 12 years on since we've retired. And a lot of them we're very close friends, and I know where a lot of them are now in their life, and I speak to them and we talk about how did we go in different paths. And I said, well, when you're an athlete, you know, especially some of the Aussie guys I raced, when you were an athlete, you're so brave. And you were so like, you know, I'd go to war with these guys and they'd throw everything at you. Like, so brave, they risk everything. I said, and when you retired, you basically took everything around and you never risked anything again. You're like, oh, okay, this is life. And I said, your whole mindset changed. And the whole mindset that made you successful was that you risked and you were brave, and now you're asking yourself why you're not successful. And in your secondary life, you did the complete opposite of what made you successful. And I never thought of it like that. But for me, it was always, well, I was always punting everything. Like, I remember when I started Supertri, the Super League back then, and we did a fun race, everyone laughed. Like, what do you mean you're going to do race? I said, I want to make a professional series, make a real short course driven series, buy a lot of the big short course races. I think Ironman's killing those off. I think there's the community races, and we can create a short course series worldwide. Let's do that, raise money. Everyone's like, that'll never work. No one cares. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still going to do it. And that's what we did, you know, like, and it's, look, as I say to people, it's very, very hard. Like, I thought it'd be a lot easier than what it was. I thought the whole entire sport would get behind you and help you because you think you're building the sport. But, you know, you realize the political quagmire that is all world sports is not as clean as you anticipate from the outside.
Yeah, no kidding. Great story. You touched on a lot of things, which is really good. But I'm wondering, before I kind of move into some of those specifics, for you, if it was all to just end right now, if you were done, like something happened and you just had to focus on one thing, that you couldn't do the business anymore, I don't know what that would be. But if that happened, would you be content with what you have built and created thus far?
I think I would be, yes, because I'd have to be. But I guess this is a question I ask myself all the time: how do I get content? I think I've always been restless, so the pursuit of contentness is you know, sometimes I think if you retire, you expire. That's sort of my headspace. It's like, what am I going to do when I retire? I actually enjoy what I do. It's not like that I go to work and I think, oh man, another day at work, this sucks. It's actually quite an enjoyable gig. I enjoy my time. I enjoy my staff. I enjoy what I do. So if I was forced upon me, would I be happy? Yeah. Would I be bored? Probably, yeah. Like I've lived a life where I've always been moving. You know, I've never been until COVID, we were forced back here to Sydney, but we've always been expats in other people's. My wife and I, we left here at 20 years of age, 21, and lived abroad, lived in the States, lived in Asia, lived in Europe all our life. So we've never been home people. Like, we've never had a home. We've always had homes all around the world. So our restlessness, I think, would be quite heavy. But I'd be proud of what I've done and proud of where we've got to. But I would be definitely restless and definitely wanting to do more. I want to personally achieve.
Yeah. No kidding. Well, your life is still young, and hopefully you have just an entire another lifetime to live. So I wish that the most.
AI will help us with that. We'll live to 150.
Yeah, exactly.
Neuralink.
Exactly. So as you move forward, then, like you know, you said you're looking for a level of contentment. I'm curious to know, like, as you continue to go on that path, what is it that brings you, I guess, in the moment, like peace, whenever you're like, because obviously you have a ton of things here. There's fires burning when you go home. There's always something that you could obsess upon and probably lose sleep over. And sometimes I assume you do. But for like when you go to like find peace or just a sound mind in the moment, what do you typically do to try to find that?
Where I feel most content and peaceful is watching my kids do sport. Like, I love my son's rugby, so I do find peace from my kids. I guess, as I said earlier, I can be relatively selfish in the sense that I think most athletes are in the pursuit of their own personal ambition. And I think once you have kids and you do get married and have family, I find contentness in their output. So I do find peace in watching them grow. But I'm always asking that question. I vividly recall when I retired, the guy that I built this big sports center for in Thailand was a German philanthropist, multi-billionaire, very successful man. And he found meditation, right? And there was another guy I'd met who I worked with earlier, who was also a billionaire guy, who'd also found meditation. And I remember thinking when I was 40, when I met him, what the hell do you need to meditate for, man? Like, I mean, you got shit tons of money, you're successful, you're what do you meditate? What's wrong in your head? Like, I couldn't quite grasp it. And then I remember speaking to both these guys a lot about it. And they were like, you need to silence the noise in your head when you're an entrepreneur and you're driving things, or not even entrepreneur, when you drive, it's very, very noisy in your head, right? And you want to find that peace. You said, think of your brain like a muddy water, and you just want stop shaking it, sit it there for a bit and let all the sentiment sink to the bottom so you've got clear. He said, when you do that, you'll find, and it's only been the last 2 or 3 years since I turned 50. I'm like, man, maybe these guys were onto something. And they were actually my age that I am now, late 40s, when they were I was having these conversations with them. And it's been the first time ever that I'm like, maybe, like I'm looking inwards. Or maybe it's a midlife crisis, they call it, right, potentially. But I'm looking
priorities aligning, children growing. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, asking myself those questions is, how do I find that contentness, that peaceness inwardly, knowing that I guess my heavy lifting years I'm coming to the twilight years of those, and maybe I do need I'm going to have grandkids soon. There's a different phase of my life coming. Do you prepare for that, or do you just keep marching forward? And is the noise in my head a lack of preparation? Do you know what I mean? That you know it's coming and you're preparing for it. So you're like, oh shit, stress. And I need to actually assess, because if this was a world championship, or if I was an athlete again, I'd be knowing what's coming and focused on knowing what's coming, and I'd be at peace because I know that I'm preparing for what's coming, right? And I'm wondering if lack of contentness and that lack of peace that you are talking about is through a lack of planning. And I guess I'm evolving as we speak, so I don't have a true answer for that.
Yeah.
I'm going through that process at the moment.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing it. Yeah. I don't think it's an easy journey. And honestly, for many different people, we all kind of, I think, arrive to a similar destination that eventually gives us contentment or peace. But in terms of getting there, every journey looks so different. And like personalities wise, when I'm talking to you, like, obviously you're very driven. I can see where you're talking about some of the ADD tendencies, because I have some of them similarly as well. Entrepreneur, like you're going to bed at night and you've got like 5 different ideas kind of, mulling over, and it's like hard to. So I say all that to like say I understand a little bit, not even to your level, but it'll be interesting to see. Like, I want to know when you figure it out and like what you find out, because I think that is something that isn't talked about enough, especially in the professional athlete world, but also in the business world, or anybody who's just like a high performer in any level of their field. A lot of the people that are most famous for whatever, maybe it's music or business or sport, many of them, and I don't know what the percentage is, but I would say it's probably well over 60, are like tortured inside. And we're going after something, sometimes for good reasons, sometimes mixed with bad reasons as well, though. And it's like, we're trying to always find that next mountain peak. And that's an exhausting journey, because this mountain never ends until we die.
Totally. And I think as you go on, I saw it when my father was towards the end of his life, and it was in a lot of the questions that it's like the realization hits, because I remember just some conversation I had with Dad. I'm like, you didn't know that? Like, I mean, I think the realization in their head was they're working it out. I remember me saying, son, it goes quick, all this noise you got, it's just, forget it's white noise. It's irrelevant, mate. Like, you think it's relevant, but it's just so irrelevant. That's what's relevant, basically your family. That was basically it. He said, no, it's this. And you just, I guess my anxiety and our lack of peace comes from just wanting to do that right, I guess. You're hoping you arrive somewhere and you have the answer and you're like, I was right. I think that brings you peace, but I don't think we're ever going to get there, because there's no right or wrong way of getting to where we're going.
Yeah. If you had the ability to look forward in your life, let's say 20 years, and you can pick like the mindset and the type of life that you're living, what do you think that'll be?
I'd love to be as active and healthy as I am now for all my family. I can do what I can do. I think that's very important. It's a major focus of mine, making sure I don't care how long I live. I just want to be able to be actively living. I'd like my kids to be happy. I think any parent, when you have kids, that becomes the only job, I guess, the only role in your life. Your true role is making sure the kids are happy and well aligned and getting on. I think that's very important. And where would I be? I would like to be at peace. We spend a lot of time, I think, spending a decade in Thailand. We'd always lived in, the States or Switzerland, very Christian countries. And when we moved to Thailand, it was very Buddhist. And when you see an entire, I guess, country or a communal group of people built on a Buddhist culture, it's a very unique way of living. It can be, you're expecting the same thing, but when when they don't really care about things because Buddha has it planned, your plans, and you actually really believe that. Yeah. It's a unique way of living, and we love that. My wife and I loved. We have a home in Thailand. We spent a lot of time there, and I find peace there. I think because it's made me view my life and ask questions of myself from a different perspective that I never would have in the past, and that we really enjoy that Buddhist way of living. Not that we're big Buddhists or I mean, like kumbayaing anywhere, but we enjoy our time there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you believe that there is like a higher power or creative force of any kind?
I like to, yeah. I'm not going to church or anything, but I grew up Catholic. But yeah, I like to believe there's something beyond just this life, whether it's the God that everyone else believes in, like they're all different gods. I do believe there's something else. What that is, I'm not stuck on. I do believe that whether it's an energy force or something, we go somewhere. Yeah. I think we have too much to just expire. I hope anyway.
Yeah. No kidding. Well, in your mind, let me ask you this: like, what is the best case scenario that happens next, as far as your conscious awareness?
Like our energy to be returned. I think all energy is comes in. I think we're just an energy force, and it's alive in its own essence and sense. And I think we just return to the earth, and that energy is just distilled into a bigger energy thing, and it peels off almost and becomes something else. And that's what I would like to think. I'm not too sure on the whole a big person up in the sky, and I'm going to go up there because I think it's very difficult to live a perfect life. And I know we don't have to, but I just think we live and we expire and we do good things in our time on this earth, and that time's very small. It's a blink of an eye, and hopefully it's part of a broader energy life, I guess. So I think we're part of that. That's what I like to think anyway.
Yeah. Do you think that you have given a net positive to the world?
Oh, it depends who you're talking to.
Your wife or
yeah, I think I've been highly positive. But I've had my fair share of indiscrepancies with individuals, and I'm quite a passionate guy, and I stand up for what I believe in, and I'm not one to take a backward step. So there's probably, if you ask a couple of people, they go, no, he's the biggest dick that ever walked the planet. But I think overall I've done, been a net positive, without question. Yeah.
So I'm going to move into a little bit more of the specific questions around some of the work you do. So I had the opportunity to interview Michael Dulst and get to know him a little bit. So that was awesome. I will be completely honest, and this is showing my ignorance, but as I was doing research, I didn't realize that you had co-founded that with him. I just knew you through Mana and talking to Tim Ford and some other guys. So that was really dumb. But what I wanted to say and ask a question about that is when it comes to Super League, Supertri, you guys co-founded that together. I would assume you still work together to a degree on the different stuff. Like a marriage, there is a lot of back and forth, and it takes work to be able to make that work. With you and Michael, because he said it depends on who you talk to. How has it gone with starting a business, working with him? Like, what have you learned about him and yourself that maybe you didn't understand prior to that engagement?
When I started the story of Supertri was, I met this individual. I always had this concept, and Michael was working for me at Tanyapura, the big center I was building in Thailand. He ran a phenomenal event in Taiwan at the time. He was living in Taiwan, a challenge, which was part of the Challenge family events. And I was an ambassador for Challenge. I did the event, saw that he ran a great triathlon, and wanted him to actually work in Thailand to help us build out our events as part of this sports center we're building. So I convinced him to come and work for me, and he was all the things I needed on a computer, right? I can't do PowerPoint presentations and that, but he could do great. So he was running my whole sports division there, and I was traveling a lot. And I came back and I pitched an idea to a Canadian Russian guy, Leonid, he would have told you about this concept of a closed league. to televise triathlon to make it more exciting. And we used to race a very similar series in Australia. So it was almost a carbon copy of this racing series we'd done in the early 90s in Australia that I believe could work internationally if done correctly. And it was the only way triathlon could be a consumable product for TV. Like, I mean, if you wanted to go that route. And so we raised the money, and I'd already had a contract with the royal family of Bahrain, which now I know is a brand new contract, or I was helping them acquire sports assets, Tour de France teams, and everything as part of our company. And in that contract, when I reread it and I just met Leonid, there's an exclusivity clause, which now I know the royal family, they wouldn't have cared. It was just right. So when I came back from meeting Leonid, I said, Michael, how about we build this series? You're going to be the CEO. I can't be it because I got this exclusivity clause, but here's what we're doing. And I remember him going, what, a 200-meter swim? Like, I mean, I said, trust me, we'll call that the Enduro, we'll call that one. And we created this league, raised the money, and it worked. And I believe we should have stayed where we're going, but fundamentally what happened, we set up in Singapore. I was all about it. We did our second raise and secured a whole bunch of venues. And at that point, I wanted to buy a lot of these mass participation races. There was when you sort of come on board and you raise a lot of money, other people get involved in your view and your vision. And we bought we brought new smart people in. I'm not so these ones that we pay a whole lot of money to be smart to, and they said we shouldn't be doing that. We should be building a program. And anyway, and cut a long story short, right before Brexit happened, there was a decision to move the company to London. I was living in Asia. Asia is a very tax effective jurisdiction, Singapore, especially for startups. We just done a big raise. They wanted to move to London because they had to be in London before Brexit happened in order to secure the stay in London. Otherwise, it was going to get a lot harder to be part of the EU. I didn't really want to do that because I didn't want to move to London. And we just raised this money. And my headspace when I sort of forecast and ran the numbers out, I'm like, you're going to burn a lot of this startup capital in taxes, and we need this money. I think this is a stupid idea. I was voted against. They all went to London, took half the Singapore team, and then I kept my company in. And that's sort of what spawned the birth of Mana. I said, okay, well, let me just pull some of these things out here, keep these in Singapore, and we'll consult on these parts of Supertri, but I'm not moving to London. That's not happening. I've got my kids in school. I just can't do it. Now we're a different life here, very young children. So he said, no worries. And then literally they got there, and then COVID hit. Like 6 months later. So boom. And that was a very difficult time. Yeah, very difficult time for the organisation because UK just shut down. They weren't allowed to do anything. Literally. And it was literally 18 months. And because a lot of the staff had moved up, they couldn't get government support because they weren't from the UK. So we burnt through a lot of capital. And that was during that time we invented Supertri, which was the arena games, because we tried to pivot because we had all these athletes on contract. We're burning through capital. Mm-hmm. And it was just a decision for all of us, but it was a very different working relationship from COVID on, because when COVID cleared, from my company's perspective in Singapore, there was a whole bunch of opportunity. Supertri was basically going, okay, can we put our events back on? A lot of those events, the governments had turned off these contracts, and we're not coming back to Malta. You're not coming back to, there was the ability for the contract. So they were going for a process. And from Mana's perspective, we were able to acquire a bunch of properties in Singapore. Well, not properties like other sports companies, but working with Michael, he just came out the other side of that. And you're dealing with it was a different ecosystem. You're dealing with oh, wow. Okay, what does this look like now? PTO had done their raise right in the middle of COVID, which was amazing because we'd been dealing with them. And luckily they hadn't employed anyone, so they'd been able to retain their capital. We did another raise, got everything done, and then they started to build out. And that was when they pivoted we talked about pivoting to a franchise model in Supertri where we could sell franchises. Mm-hmm. And the original ones were horrific when they had cheetahs and lions, and I was just I was like, very English to me. I'm
glad you said it.
That was terrible, man. That was constantly my argument, because I just sit on the board now. So I'm the chair of the board, and the board still runs Supertri, so we direct what's going on. But yeah, I made that very clear. But it's my argument has always been, and a lot of the English that listen to you may disagree, but Australians are very world renowned for being disruptors in sport, especially because we're highly attached to the UK, and the UK is probably the top of the tree of traditionalism. They're
Yeah.
traditionalists, right? And they don't change shit, right? Like, I mean, and Australians change cricket. If it wasn't for us, we'd still be all wearing white and playing cricket for 5 days, right? And Australian guys brought out one-day cricket, changed it for the good, made cricket one of the biggest sports in the world.
I
And
didn't know
I've
that.
said the same with triathlon. When we disrupted it in this sense, I said, you've got to bring it tighter, remove conversations with all the traditionalists because they're going to tell you all the reasons why it's shit, right? That's like any sport. So but when you move to the UK, you've got, it's just naturally part of their DNA to be conservative, to be. So when you're having these marketing conversations with Brits, sometimes, and I mean this with the utmost respect because I love them, they're some of my closest friends, but they're very traditional and conservative. So when they brought out those teams like rugby teams, like the Lions, I'm like, mate, this is embarrassing. Be like Formula One, you know? Like,
I was gonna say it doesn't fit the Formula One
doesn't
aspect.
fit that. Mate, it was like, so we ultimately got there. But that's working with Michael. Michael, I think, is one of the greatest operators I've ever worked with. Fantastic operator. As visionary, strategically, can be limited in times, but once he has that vision, and once you can apply that, he's a perfect person to get it done and moving forward. It's a difficult sport, triathlon, without question. It's I always say this to everyone: you've got to be a believer in it. And a lot of people, I say to myself, why do I do it? Why do I keep coming back here? Why do I keep throwing so much time and attention in sport? Because it's a game in my life. I honestly believe it. I think it's an incredibly cool sport, and I think Supertri in saving that short course racing and being a vehicle for professionals to race through and creating the direction they want to go is needed, because I think if you kill off the community events and short course racing, and you'll kill off the sport fundamentally with time. So I enjoy working with Michael.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's a lot to take in. I can't imagine. I was just thinking about crisis mode. You know, COVID hits, you're on the lock with all those contracts. You've raised this money. You're bleeding money through a fire hose that's not stopping. I couldn't even imagine. Like, I wouldn't sleep for probably a few months. I don't know if you did.
You got to remember, and luckily, we also had a Bahrain team. So we had a triathlon and a cycling team that we ran for. So you have all these contracted athletes, and then you have the contracted or the contracting parties or even the investors looking for ways to get out of that investment.
Immediately. Everybody's
and they're trying to sell, blame COVID. So you're like, oh man.
Yeah, dude.
So that was stressful time. But fortunately we had investors and people that believed in it. Definitely took inventory and panicked. There was definitely a panic mode, cut costs at all costs. But the fact that we survived it was really good, and the ecosystem, or what the world looked like post COVID, was remarkable. How many people were just existing, and so I cleaned up a lot of the weaker agencies.
Yeah. So since you started working, and you've given a little bit of a story to the genesis of how these different organizations kind of spread out. Would you ever have guessed, because you said that, the mindset you took after being a professional athlete, you wanted to apply that to the real world. So if you see opportunity, find that edge. So you're obviously driven, but did you ever imagine it would be kind of what it is right now in terms of the umbrella corporation that is all of these different sub-organizations?
I did. It's funny you say that, because I speak to Jan Frodeno, who's considered probably the greatest triathlete. He's a bit younger than I am, and he worked with us on the Bahrain team. We sponsored him for 10 years. And I think when I was an athlete, and I was one of the first, I was sponsored by Jamba Juice, and I was sponsored as a triathlete, Jamba Juice, and I was sponsored by Under Armour. I knew Kevin Plank when he started the company. I was Under Armour's first ever sponsored athlete. So I was and I think it came from my father. And I struggle with the new age athlete now, who's more of an influencer than they are an athlete. I think they're more worried about making content and doing their stories.
Keeping sponsors happy, getting the contracts.
Sponsors happy, and what sponsors' expectations are different. But my headspace was, I saw myself as a prize fighter. My job was I knew I had a finite amount of time. I guess I was very logical, probably brought about from my father always telling me, you can't do this forever. I was very logical. I had a finite amount of time to do this sport, and my job was to maximize my earning capacity beyond my sports careers within that sports. So I was dedicated to Macca. And I think within triathlon, everyone would agree, I took the earning capacity of triathletes from $500,000 a year to $2 million. Like I was making that, and because my expectation was big, I wouldn't sign a sponsor. To get on my jersey, you need to pay 6 figures. Like, oh, you're not getting on it, minimum. Where, you see a whole bunch of athletes with 5,000 sponsors on them. I'm like, dude, they give me a free water bottle and so I was very driven in that sense, and I built up all the structures. I think coming from an accounting background, I built up all my structures in order to do that, and a lot of my bonus, a lot of my equity. I took equity in a lot of these companies as part of my deal, which set me up for post-career, because I think post-career, and I speak to Mark Allen a lot of these triathletes don't know what they're going to do post-career. Well, I definitely had a buffer of had good investments. I'd done very well for myself in that sense. And then I just applied, as I said, I didn't see difficulty in the transition into the business world. I just needed ideas. My headspace prior to me entering the business world was I sold myself. I was the brand. I sold. So I just needed something else to sell, right? I just doing the same shit, different. So when I took building the sports center in Thailand, I had it basically an anchor, and then I was able to build out my consulting company and put everything underneath it. And I just enjoyed doing this. Like I said, I was in Kazakhstan consulting for the Olympic Committee there for Triple G. I was a mad boxer, so I was working with him a lot. Then I met Leonid. We started Supertri. I met the royal family of Bahrain. I met the royal family of Qatar. They were all looking at being in the sports space. Why can't I be that individual that sells them the sports assets and manages it for them? So I just say, oh, look, I'll do that. I can get that. And that's sort of how the entrepreneurial head worked. And I always believed it was capable. It was always, as I said earlier, people are always like, oh, but how did you know that was going to work? I'm like, well, I didn't know I was going to be a professional triathlete either. I didn't know that was going to work.
Yeah,
you just do it.
Like
I didn't ask myself every day I woke up as a triathlete, what if this doesn't work? You just get it done. Like that's the mindset I was saying that I believe, why someone has to do it. Why not me? And so it was, everything we built has been a byproduct of that, I guess, that attitude, yes.
So what are some ideas that you are excited about here for the future that maybe haven't come fully to light yet, if you're allowed to say?
I'm getting into this tokenization of real world sporting assets. My friend has built a really good market making company. I used to laugh at him. He was in the Web3 world, and a lot of people are, oh, Web3 crypto, and I'm not a crypto guy, so I lost. I'm famous with my crew. I lost 25 Bitcoins. I bought them for like $500 back in the day.
Are you serious?
Yeah, gone. Well, you know, that story. I lost them. I paid for nothing. And my mate's made hundreds of millions of dollars on Bitcoin, and so that's the big joke. We're buying them in 2012 and 13.
Wow.
And now I've got that same group of friends that I have. One of my friends has built a massive company called Asheron. It's a big market making company in the tokenization world. He did the Trump coin. He did a whole bunch of stuff. And he's building a merchant bank at the moment, which I'm getting heavily involved with because we're tokenizing some sporting assets. So I've been able to bring some interesting sports assets across the table to him where they tokenize some of the fundraise. And that's an interesting world that I'm excited about because
you can trade it as it goes in value. That's the idea.
Yeah. Well, I just like the fact that most of the raise I've done an equity raise. What's the best way to explaining this to people? Most equity is so illiquid, right? You can't. Yeah. I can't, unless there's a selling moment happening, I can't get my cash out. So right now I own
numbers on a page until it sells.
Well, when we tokenize it, and the secondary market already exists, I can do the same things. I can have a secure token, like a stable coin. It's secured by, say, revenue in this. Say we're to tokenize Supertri. We say, okay, let's take a revenue token. Let's take 10% of all revenues from Supertri go into this token. Mm-hmm. Smart contract to build it on the Ethereum blockchain, or we build it on Dev, whatever blockchain you want.
Yeah, whatever.
Smart contract, so no one can rip you off. And this is what I never realized. I always thought crypto was a pump and dump mugs game. But once you build
that's how people made money quickly. But
yeah. There is that component of it, but that's getting really cleaned up now with all the regulation and stuff that's come about with the Genius Act. But that smart contract, once it's smartly done, it can't be corrupted, which I love. So you don't need to trust anyone anymore. You just need to trust the contract. And then you release these tokens, and they're doing a big one at the moment in gaming where we raised $100 million from tokens with the big Bo Anderson's the guy's name. He's building 3 big games. And in the gaming model, where gamers used to have, every $100, the guy who actually builds the game, designs the game, who's famous, he goes on Twitch and everything, he only makes 8% of that $8 out of every $100. And he's the actual designer because all the money needs to be raised to build the games, right? So we went to one of the biggest guys and said, why don't you've got millions and millions of followers, why don't you tokenize the raise and but own everything? So once you've got the money, we put a portion of revenue attached to this token to your game. So if this game makes billions, and so the token already released it, raised the money, building the game. He did a 3-game token. He's the merch and everything. So people are speculating on what this token could potentially be worth because the game hasn't even launched yet.
Yeah.
You know, that 10% of revenue is going to this token, and it's 3 games, and they're talking merch. They're talking so people, it's already like 8x the token's value, technically the perceived value of what the token launched. It's quite an interesting. So it's very much like shares. You probably know the space really well, but it's
no,
so I
not
like
super well, but enough to know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, getting this merch and selling sports assets more. Like a lot of the interesting stuff with a lot of the second tier or even the Premier League football teams is tokenizing the players on there, because any football team knows that money now is valuable. But I got a $20 million player on the pitch. If I could tokenize him now and get the carry and take some money in now, and even if I trade and get that money back later, I'll take that money now. So it's always discussions around potentially tokenizing player values on pitches. But there's a lot of people like, oh, mate, that's stupid. That'll never work. I'm like, oh, I've heard that many times before, but I do think there's a future in this stuff.
Well, it doesn't work until it does. And yeah, it's interesting with everything that is crypto and the future that is to come. Whenever people are talking about it in mass, it's like, probably not a good time to start something new. But now that it's calmed down quite a bit, because we've had like 2 or 3 of these, like, everybody go buy Ethereum and Bitcoin, it's going to the moon. And it's like, oh, and that's where you get burned. So it's like, this seems like an obvious time. It's not super loud in the news, and you can kind of build something, and then when it goes back up again. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting world. Really unstable
than anything. Those coins being attached to something, so having some intrinsic value as opposed to meme coins and stuff that are just a pump and dump. And when it's just, to me, it just made sense, because once I got pitched and he was explaining, it's basically an IPO. It's fractional ownership of shit. Yeah, it's an IPO inverted. Instead of relying on, well, you can do an equity token, but I always say the problem with IPOs and owning shares to some degree is you get paid on dividends, and I'm saying that's an optional. It's also optional for the C-suite team to allocate a dividend.
Yeah, it takes the control to the shareholder rather than the board of directors. Yeah,
that's weird.
Yeah. That's exciting. That is exciting. So when I'm hearing all of the things you're talking about, I'm just fascinated with, even you remind me of some of my friends who I just like, I can't seem to wrap my head around how you have time to do these things. Obviously they're just fragmented conversations that we're talking about for different parts of things, but who is responsible for enabling you to have the time to have that family time, to have time to travel?
Yeah, my CEO, Trent Taylor, is amazing. So all I'm good at doing is finding, I call it business development. Bang, here's a great thing. Who do I need to execute this and bring it into my umbrella ecosystem? And then how do I build efficiencies? So and that's what I said with Michael. Michael's a great operator. Building efficiencies and those sort of things, not really on his radar, but you give him boom, he's getting it done. Trent Taylor, my CEO at Mana, he's incredible from a marketeering point of view. He used to spearhead Ironman, so he's very cluey on the triathlon and sports space in that sense, but he's a great marketeer. He's now CEO of my whole group. Stacey, who she's basically my GM, came from marketing as well. And then my business partner, Voice. So we're very good at putting good people on, and we have multiple offices. And nowadays you can work online, but we have an office in Poland, which is good from a resourcing point of view because the labor costs are relatively lower relative to the rest of the EU. And so we can do a lot of our European stuff there, and all managed out of Australia and Singapore. So I've just got good people. They make me look good, which is
And your method of operation as you go out and try to find these ideas or the business development, like obviously it's a lot of conversation and networking. As you approach these conversations and you're figuring out, where to put kind of your emphasis and enthusiasm behind, do you spend more time using your head to rule that decision or your heart, do you think?
Mix of both. Fundamentally, it needs to make sense in my head. I need to see, okay, where is this going? What is it? Because everyone has a great idea. You realize its ideas are everywhere. It's the execution group that makes an idea valuable or not. And my head will assess the idea. My heart will measure the person. Can this guy, right? Does he believe it enough? And the perfect example is this 100 series. They're building a World Series for 100 that I'm now the global. I work with them on strategy and president of global strategy and Raise. And the guy running that Zhao is just, he's already done a successful IPO, successful businessman, doesn't need money. right? Not wealthy by any means, but not,
Not hurting for it.
not hurting for a buck. Loves this space, would like to make an impact on it, and has got the bandwidth and time to throw at it. So I'm like, sign me up. I said, because building a league is difficult, right? Building a mass participation league a little easier than a pro league, but also it's very easy to do it in a single destination. Like if I was building Supertri, just doing it in America, piece of piss. But we've learned that the hard way by trying to launch a worldwide series in different territories with different laws, different rules. It's so hard moving TV. And that's the same with this series that I'm building with 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always looking at the individuals and the people, whether I believe they can do it. And then you just start working, okay, what resources do I have to help support that? What resources would I have to bring on? Where do I think the margin is in this? Is this a long play? Is it a medium? And it's not that difficult, but you just have those hard questions and answer them and move forward. I find a lot of people answer them and, maybe I won't do it. And then they just tread water.
Yeah.
If
Talk
it
about
makes
the idea a lot more than
yeah. And a lot of the time it's just like, if it makes sense, do it. If it doesn't go, look, it's not going to work for me.
Yeah. You seem like a ready, shoot, aim type of a person. Is that accurate?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
I was saying like kind of tongue in cheek because I think that's really at the end of the day like how anything gets started, and it's really cool that you've been able to build a network around you to where just the things you're throwing out there with Poland, a little bit lower labor costs, obviously high level of education enough to be able to operate these type of things. It sounds like fundraising is a huge part of your job. So I would say there's probably 5, 6, 7 people that kind of sit here to help fund most of these ventures. Is that accurate?
There's amazing groups of PE funds now that do it. The sports space is getting a little bit more difficult than it was, say, 8 or 9 years ago, when money was just free and easy. And mate, if you had an idea for sports hats, someone would throw $1 million at you. Now there's a little bit more
trepidation,
a little bit more diligence going on, and especially in the UK, they have this £1 million. A lot of the companies you talk to have £1 million revenue rule. That they're not going to invest unless you can show you can make £1 million. So the whole startup idea of they're testing where the founders can know how to make revenue before they actually give it.
Good idea.
So this £1 million rule, which for a lot of those tech companies and that, it's very difficult now. Where back in the day, it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Here's some money. Yeah. So that's made a lot of these smaller league startups a bit more difficult. So they've got to be bootstrapped and founder funded on the front end, which can slow things up, and it's made it harder. The Middle Eastern funds are throwing money at everything. They're just very difficult to work with. And
in the best way possible.
In the best way possible. Yeah. They're just difficult. They're very corporate, and it's like you said on this date, and that. Yeah. I was not used to by March 31st, you'd have this much revenue. You don't. Reason, cut yourself. They're very, very. They're not pliable as some funds where you can have a conversation. You can see that you're 2 months off or a month off. They're like, you didn't, bang. So that can be quite difficult. But raising money I've got a good network in that. But I think it's not everything I do. I think what I'm capable of is knowing how you can bring certain things together. Like you've got influencers, and how I can lean on that from a marketing perspective. And I'm always thinking of my company, who I've got in it, when an idea comes, who I would need to put in, how they can do it, and then can we add value, and what will that value's long-term value be? Is it worth that value just because I think you got a great idea and I'm going to help you build the most amazing podcast and you're going to have the great, or is it we're going to build this and we're going to help bring the sponsors on? Like, it's all these conversations that are, and then I see opportunity, I take it. I'm like, let's do it. Yeah. Because I actually enjoyed the process. Yeah. Because it's fun stuff, like I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Human capital is it's not an easy thing. Like to find a worker is easy. To find a good worker or a quality worker, so do you have a running list of people that you meet where you're like, oh, that person could probably
I do that all the time.
Yeah.
And I say this on my PA, my Polish PA, I wish I could amplify her 10 times. She is unbelievable. As you said, there's the Polish, we've got 8 Polish staff, and my main EA, she's more than my EA now she speaks 5 languages. She got 3 degrees.
Wow.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, mate, you're such an overachiever. Why are you working for me? Like,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, how do you keep these people?
I don't want to say too much to you. You're going to see that I actually don't know what I'm talking about. You're probably
Yeah.
smarter than I am, but she's
Yeah, no kidding.
amazing. You
Yeah.
realize people make you good, and if you look after those people, they
It'll pay
this
dividends. Yeah.
they give back as well, and they realize this job's pretty cool. It's fun being around sport and
Yeah.
traveling and we're living this as our life. So it's you want it to be a little bit enjoyable, and they have a good time.
Right on. Well, one last question for you. And we've alluded to this a little bit, but I would be curious to know from when you first, I'm going to even say post sport, because we talked about your sport, you know, being one of the greatest moments that you would attribute to having is like that title with World Triathlon, I think it was. Post that into this world, like the business world, how has success changed for you in its definition? Has it changed?
How do I measure success? It's funny, my wife and I said, had you told me when I started this journey in sport, or as a 20-year-old kid, if I'd be 52 and be where I'm at now, would I be happy? I'd go, oh man, I'm all in. You give me what I have.
Take all my
That's
chips.
all I ever wanted. I'm all in. But I think, how do I measure success now? That's sort of the question. I'm doing stuff now predominantly for the kids, and I guess that's a cop out. Everyone sort of says that, but
that's what's most valuable.
Yeah. I just think my responsibility now is to them still, and even though my oldest is 21, and I just want to be part of that journey and make sure they have any opportunity. My responsibility is, I guess, I'm the one. I keep saying to my younger brother in our family, because my brothers and I are very close. It's like, well, we're the group. Like, well, let's build our own McCormack dynasty. Man. Let's have a crack.
Yeah.
That's I guess what we're supposed to leave behind, if anything. And so that's where I sort of measure my success is how much time my kids want to hang out with me, which at the moment is a lot. So I'm doing that well.
It's a good metric.
Yeah, it's a good metric, and just I'm motivated by bringing on their goals and ambitions and trying to help those happen for them if I can, and making them think. Like, I'm always pushing my kids to be entrepreneurial thinkers. Like to it's not bad to do 10 things. Like back when my dad did this. What's your dad do? He's a truck driver. But it's very common now for exactly what you said before. You do a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, that's what a lot of people do nowadays. Yeah. And that's where I think is that ADD entrepreneurial headspace, which I think is very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not like a thing that holds you back. It's not a limiter. It can be an enabler if treated correctly. It can become a problem, sure, because I think I've had some of it as well. But if you can learn how to harness that beast, then definitely can be
it's a complete task. Because I find some ADD people, they go bang, 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 and they leave a lot of
just floating out in existence,
right? And that chews up bandwidth and time. But if you're a person, I like to finish complete, like boom, complete the task, done, tick. And so I won't overtake things on, but I'll definitely have 3 or 4 things running at the same time, but try and finish them off. And I do get frustrated at people that I think can't multitask. So I'm like, come on, man. Like we've got one thing to do here. Let's get it done. Let's get it done.
Yeah. So, well, I'll just go ahead and end it. I know that you probably have a lot to do. So thank you so much for taking such a long amount of time for me to get to dive in with your life. Really enjoyed it. You got a pretty cool story. I know I only scratched the surface, so in the future would like to extend it again and have you on another time. But
anytime.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Too easy.
You say too easy, but I'm thinking like this man's schedule must be a solid block of colors from different meetings and stuff like that.
So it's okay. It's not too bad.
Good. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you so much to Chris for coming on the pod, sharing in the way that he did. As I say with every guest, it's always fun to hear the different stories that they have going on. And Chris is no exception to that. Thank you guys for being here. What's my main takeaway? I kind of want to take this end of the podcast piece to do a little more thoughtful thinking rather than just rattling something off. So something I learned from this episode, I think, is that like working hard matters, but not just working hard, loving to work hard. That can really, I think, only be taught as a young kid, maybe a little bit when you get older, but the foundational things that we learn in our households from our parents or people who speak truth and discipline into our lives definitely matters. And being able to love work and love what you do is not an easy thing to do. So I think that's what I'll leave you guys with. So find some hard work, execute on it, get it done. And if you fail, that's okay. You can take that experience to the next thing. So thanks for being here. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.